Podcast here in a few minutes. It's like our little pre-show. Alisha Bush joining me. Hello, Alisha. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We're good. Westpoint Softball in the house. By the way, we are live right now. We should be on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on two different Facebook pages. Twitch has been being a little weird, but we might be on Twitch as well. If you can hear us, make sure to comment in there. I always like to know at the beginning. My worst nightmare, Alisha, is that we do like a full episode and no one heard anything.
And no one can hear.
Yeah, no one heard anything. So like that's one of my biggest nightmares. So I'm gonna make sure we're all live here. And you're feel free to share as well, because I don't know if I can actually tag you when we do this live thing. So feel free, if you're on Facebook, I don't know if you are or not, you can share it, or you can always share it later. Cool. But we are live. This is a special Monday edition of the Siteman Softball Podcast. I always like to send it to my guys, so I'm gonna send it real quick here, and then we'll officially start. And we're just talking about how is your crazy, too much of a crazy Monday, or not too much so far?
Not too much so far. Just getting ready for the snow here. It's supposed to come tomorrow. So yeah,
snow is coming. And where are you coming at us from?
So I live close to Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay, so, close to Indianapolis. And, we're going to find out a lot about you, a lot about Westpoint today on the show. And I'm sure if you guys have questions, Alisha, we might even put you in the commissioner's seat later. What would you do to improve, conference softball? Got lots of ideas that we can discuss here today. By the way, are you I know that we'll talk about this a little bit later, but Westpoint Financial, do you work from home, or do you also have an office as well?
Both. I do have an office. Our office is in Indianapolis, but post-COVID, I guess during COVID and post-COVID, I've worked mostly from home. I used to travel a ton, but now I work mostly from home. But I do have an office to go to as well.
Just curious, how do you like, I know you have a little one too, but how do you like working from home? I'm just curious. I asked this because I'm 38. I've been working home since I was 21, 22. And I'm just curious, what's your take on it? Like it, hate it? Meh?
I do like it. It gives me a little bit more flexibility. Although I don't want to say I'm not productive at home, but when I'm in the office, I kind of shut my door and am super productive. And with it being at home, I, go do other things like laundry and the dishes and everything else that need to get done. So
you got a nice little taste of my productivity at home a few minutes ago before we went on the air, because someone walked across my lawn. And I'm like, who is that? I almost ran out the door. Yes. So that's something you don't see in an office necessarily, but here we are at home. So for those tuning in here right now live, this is a special Monday edition. Alisha had some very important activities on Tuesday. So we're going to this is the first ever Monday edition of the Siteman Softball Podcast. This is episode number 57. Reminder on a few things here as we get into our interview and our chit chat. You always interact here live on Facebook. Write your questions, say hi, make sure you're live. At Siteman Softball on Instagram, Siteman Softball Nation on Facebook, YouTube Siteman Softball, and SitemanSoftball.com/podcast. So let's start here. Let's start current, then we'll go backwards.
Okay.
Westpoint. Let's talk about last season. Let's talk about what's going on this season. So give us your analysis of the 2022. I forgot my year. 2022. Don't tell us about 21. That's too long ago. 2022 Westpoint season.
Yeah. I think our season was overall pretty good. I think that maybe we peaked a little too early. I don't want to say that we got too confident, but I really thought that we were one of the best A teams out there. And just didn't put it together in A Worlds. And really, I think we were close in the major. We were close in those couple games, just had some errors, had some things on offense we just couldn't hit. But overall, I think we did well as a team. I think we played together. 2020 was my first year of really having people from all over the United States. And so that's really started the process of trying to play together. So I think they did a really good job of that, being from in different parts of the U.S. and still playing together pretty well as a team. Because I have said multiple times that team chemistry is huge, and I think they did a pretty good job at that. We fell a little short at the end of the year. So yeah.
So now, and again, you guys are one of my top picks. You saw on the hit and sit, things like that, and it happens. I mean, that's the way it goes. I mean, it did seem throughout the year you guys were a knit team.
Yep.
Flashes of brilliance, do you know what I mean, as you went. And as we discussed a couple of months ago on the hit and sit, you really like kind of, I don't want to say rebuilt, but you kind of had to really get that team from a lot of different places last year, right?
I did. Yeah, it's 2020. Pretty much everyone left after the 2019 season, except 3 people, and then so I had to rebuild the entire team from in 2020, and there wasn't very many people left in Indiana for choices, and so had to branch out and look all over the U.S. in different parts, and really overall 2021 was a pretty good season. We started playing well towards the end and kind of built on that because I am not one to kind of start from scratch every year.
Right. That sounds like a nightmare.
Yes. So I there's a couple people that leave, a couple people that don't come back, and then just kind of build from there. But most all, I like to keep my core guys for sure.
Yeah, and so after, just to go back there for a second, so 2019, you guys were playing, what was it, B?
We were B in 2019.
Yeah, you were B in 2019.
Yep.
Then what happened? Everyone just retired? Everyone want to go up and play upper ball?
The end of 2020 season. So 2020 was pretty good. I had most of my guys from Indiana, plus Josh Kirsten came on at the end of 2020, and Austin Dahl was on the team in 2020. And we kind of did the same thing. We were a really good team in A, and then just didn't play well at A Worlds. We did end up playing extremely well in the major, though. We finished 5th in the major. And then after 2020, just people left. For various reasons. And so, but I will say 4 of those guys are back. On the roster now. And so
maybe thought the grass was greener. Not so much. Here they come back.
It's always an option. But by all means, it's their decision. I always want people to do what they think is best for them, whether that's what I agree with or disagree with,
even if it's wrong. But yeah, exactly. So yeah, I get what you're saying on that. Now, couple things here. Real quick questions. Is that a common question we see online from players that maybe don't have a team or looking to play conference or things like that? And I know we talked about this on Hit and Sit for a minute, but I thought this was just interesting to elaborate on it, is that you really built your team. You had to build it, pretty hardcore.
Yep.
You did a combination. What was the thing? Did you get recommendations from people? I know you looked at the free agency board.
I did look at the free agent. So I'm just curious
for people.
Yeah, I did look at the free agent list. So I had a somewhat of a core group of people. And then I took some people from the SVC team in 2020. So took, 4 or 5 guys from there, and then looked at the free agents team. And then really it was word of mouth from people on the team. I trust my guys a lot to give me recommendations of who they think would be a good fit for the team. Because I am willing to take chances on people. It just has to come with a recommendation. I am not very good at just reading a name and saying, sure, come play for me. I like to watch that person play, or like at least somebody on my team to say, hey, look, this person's pretty good. We need to add them. So. Yeah.
And usually while talent evaluations of players, evaluating other people sometimes can vary, but you always know someone is in the alignment if they want someone. You guys want to win, right? And you guys want to play well, and you don't want to bring in someone that's a disaster, right?
Yes.
Do you have, and this is kind of like a little bit of a tricky question, but I'm curious, like, do you have kind of, the types of players you look for? Obviously there's skill level, right? But what's kind of the culture of Westpoint? What kind of player does it attract, or what kind of player do you think fits in, and what do you guys kind of stand for, if you will?
Yeah. I hope that my guys would agree that I am super family oriented. And so people are very welcome to bring their kids, their spouses all the time. Because that's what I do. I would want to go, and maybe it's just being a female in that position, that I would want to go. I would want my daughter to go. If I was there. And so if I was in that position, so I want to make sure that everybody feels welcome. And I have always said that I want to add, I want to win, but I want to win with the right people. So if it's somebody that is extremely good, but may not fit what I think is a good teammate, then I probably won't add them just for that simple fact. Because again, I think it goes back to chemistry, and everybody has to get along to be able to win. And you can't have one or two bad eggs to do that, because otherwise it's not going to fit that, and you're not going to win.
Yeah. And unfortunately, what I've seen too is that, in my opinion, doing it the right way. I see Brandon Miller and Eric competitive edge, similar to what they do a lot of different teams. And some teams are just like, we're going to take the best available person.
Sure.
Doesn't matter who it is. We're going to go out there. And I feel like that often ends in disaster.
Sure.
Sometimes they put some stuff together for short term.
Yes.
Where lightning can hit in a bottle between the lines. But like the long term of it just seems like a disaster. So that's interesting about sort of the family oriented, and that's what you guys go for. So let's talk about this upcoming year. So last year, big record today, meaning like huge record, one of the top seeds the whole year. Obviously didn't end the way you wanted it to. So what's going on here for 2023? Got to get my years right.
Yes. So we are starting AA. And so that was kind of a goal of mine, just in the back of my head too. And I've added a few players to help with power. But I think the core of my team is good. I guess maybe some people would disagree with that, but I have all the faith in the world in them. And so I think that makes them play with a chip on their shoulder, that they have a lot to prove. And I think those guys will go and do that next year. So I'm pretty excited about the team. I'm pretty excited about who I've added. I don't necessarily know if we have all the stadium power in the world, but I do know that we have enough power to go and compete.
Got it. That. Well, a couple questions on that real quick. So was AA an auto bump?
It was. Because
of the major?
Yes.
Okay. So the rule, which I saw, or so I thought, trying to figure out the rules half the time is that if you were a team that qualified for the major,
you automatically have to start at AA.
Okay. Yep. So that's interesting to know. So obviously roster's not out yet. When do you like to release the roster?
It's kind of tough. I would say I used to always have my people sign those contracts, and I don't really have anything which I could probably make a binding contract, but I don't know with my guys. I trust them, and I am loyal to the core. Everybody will, I think, attest to that. And so I would say, January, all of that will be out for sure. I know that there's some people that know our rosters, my roster to begin with right now, but I've added 3 people, I think, off the top of my head for sure, from different teams. So I think that'll help. That'll help us for sure. So.
Got it. You're teasing us with the names. See, I got everybody's out there on us.
So
you know what I mean? You got to give us, you're teasing us. You're messing with us. I got everybody up.
Yes. So the 3 guys that I've added. So I did add Nick Canfield, who played on Premier last year. I added Cody Pack, who also played on Premier last year. And then I guess there's 4. So Jordan Patterson he's one of the guys that used to play on my team. He's coming back. And then Tyler Cowles, who played as a center fielder on Cheap Suits last year, but is from the Ohio, Nashville, Tennessee area. So
got it. If Cheap Suits played us every game last year, they would have won Worlds. Every time we played Cheap Suits last year, they played their best game of the season every time we played them. I'm like, really? Yeah. And we kept running into them. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then we'd see them lose. I'm like, we just get the best game? Great.
They played us really, really well all year last year. It was always like extra innings, and we would win by 1, and it was they played us really, really well.
And in terms of your team, did you retain everybody you wanted to?
Yeah, I think so. I had a couple guys leave, but that was on their own terms, so that's okay. Some retired. Again, it was it's one of those things, right? Whether I want people to do what's best for them, whether I agree or disagree. So
Chris says up here from Cheap Suits, he says, unfortunately, we didn't play you guys all year. See, that's what I'm telling you. We would get their best game. That's the way it goes sometimes with teams. You know what I mean?
Right.
And sometimes you play your best game against teams, and it's weird how that works. Isn't that kind of strange? Like anytime we play them, we seem to get their best game. Anytime we play the Seminoles, we seem to play our best game. And they couldn't beat us. Like it was like such a weird dynamic how that works in softball. Who knows, how that actually works. So for this season, do you set, last year, obviously, I'm assuming you want to win A Worlds, want to qualify for the major and do well. How do the goals change? Do the goals change for next year? Is like when you go into a season, you're like, is this what you want to accomplish to call it a successful season?
Sure. I think, again, I think it goes back to, I think we have a lot to prove. I think the guys know that, just kind of based off of everything that I have heard in this off season, if you want to call it off season. But I think I have the right guys. And so I think, obviously, I think the major, I don't want to say is automatic, but I think that is definitely a goal, being obviously a AA team. I know there were a couple AA teams that didn't make it last year.
Yeah, several.
To the major. And so I think that is something, obviously a goal of ours. And then we competed pretty well against AA teams as an A team last year, I think. And so really just have that mindset again. It doesn't, I've always said it doesn't matter what class you're in until the end. When it comes to A Worlds, the World Tournament, otherwise you got to play them all. And so you can't take the B or the A teams lightly. And you can't think you're going to get beat by the major teams. So just to go in every tournament and think that we have to compete. No,
it makes sense. And then you kind of see where the cards lie, as the year goes. That makes sense. So Alisha, I want to go back here, talk about Westpoint for a second and go kind of back into a little bit of history, find out a little bit about you and softball. But really quickly, I want to give a shout. I'm going to put up on the screen here really fast. We're going to do a little sponsor shout out here today. I want to thank Siteman Cancer Center for their sponsorship of today's episode. And I want to, as I unplug my own computer, we should probably plug that back in, shouldn't we? All right, let's see. There we go. Learningwithnationalleaders.com. I want to mention this actual speaker series that is absolutely free. So if you're looking to learn a little bit about it, Alisha, I'm sure you can attest this. Cancer, unfortunately, it affects everybody one way or another. Whether it's you or whether it's someone in your family or, unfortunately, a friend. It's one of those terrible things that affects everybody. So, learningwithnationalleaders.com, a great way to educate yourself, absolutely free. Be sure to check that out. And thank you to Siteman Cancer Center for their sponsorship of this episor. All right, so back at it. Let's go backwards now. Go all the way to the beginning. One question. So you're the sole sponsor of the team. Is that correct?
I am. Yes.
Okay. As another sole sponsor, give props for that. Okay. When did you get involved with softball and why?
So I first got involved in softball in 2011.
Okay.
So about 2010, 2011. I grew up in Ohio, and so moved to Indiana after college, and my best friend at the time played D-ball, and so he just said, hey, do you want to come out and watch us? And I was like, sure, and keep book. So I said, okay, that's fine. So kept the book. And then by 2011, I guess that was 2010. By 2011, I was like, okay, you guys need some sort of structure. So I'm just going to do this. So I kind of just took over from there. So started, I don't want to say lower ball, but at lower ball. And then just kind of worked my way up from there. And so in 2018, we won C Worlds. And then had to, go to B from there, spent a couple years in B, and then went to A from there. But it's always, I do it because I love the game, and I want people to play the game that they love without having to worry about expenses. So that's kind of why I do it. So, yeah.
We're kindred spirits on it. And it's funny. It's almost like softball. You don't choose softball. I feel like sometimes I was explaining that I was doing my workout this morning. I go to one of the places I go is F45, like the functional workouts. And he saw one of our trainers, Nick, was talking about, he's like, tell me about this like slow pitch and what is going on here. I'm like, I'm going to sound insane when I talk about it. Do you know what I mean? But like, you either get it or you know what I mean? Like, you're either involved and you don't, but like, that's something interesting. And, once you guys won Sea Worlds, then were you a conference team the next year?
No, we didn't. My first year in the conference was 2020.
Okay.
As an A team. So they did the B a little bit different back then. That it was a little bit different, I think, of a schedule, and so it just didn't fit to do a conference B schedule. So yeah, we were just B for 2019.
Got it. And do you have, I mean, I don't call it an end game because everyone wants to win worlds, right? But is it just that you just want to keep doing this as long as you're enjoying it and keep moving up the ranks? Because I mean, you're getting up where, there's nowhere to go soon,
Sure. Yeah. It's always a tough decision on how long to do this because obviously my daughter is getting older and I want to make sure that I don't miss any of her things either. So yeah, it's one of those things I struggle with a lot because I don't, I'll go back to like, I'm a super loyal person. So I don't ever want to let my team down. With the same respect that I don't think that they want to let me down. So it's just, I kind of just take it on a year by year basis at this point.
Smart.
Kind of figure out from there.
And I have to ask this question too, is that, now correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong on this. So I want to ask, you are the only female sponsor manager in men's conference. Is that correct?
That I know of.
Okay, because I haven't seen another one. I mean, unless someone's hiding that we don't know about, that's pulling the strings from behind the scenes like a puppet that we don't know about. But I and I'm curious, does that any unique challenge or differences that you see with it?
I think so. I did, I have had a couple people that for whatever reason, which is totally okay. Their spouses were not okay with them playing for a female coach, a female sponsor. Cause I know that comes with, it's different. But I also feel like that's just not them giving me a chance. Because I don't think that it's any different, by any means. It's one of those things that just comes with the territory. A lot of things I'm sure are said, but I feel like I do this for the right reasons. So
yeah, so it's but it's got to be, it's a unique situation for sure. Do you know what I mean? And so like, people, and that's interesting too. If you're not confident, and people are different. You know what I mean? How it says that, but you always seem to get, the players you want, the talent you want, and people like playing for you. So it's not, that's kind of supersedes it, I would say.
Yeah. And I think the guys on my team totally, I respect them to the highest degree. And I think that they respect me too.
I love it. Now I got to ask you this one. I'm putting you in the commissioner's seat. Okay. So you are Strojan for this sake of argument. Let's just pretend, or you're the entire committee. You get to you're deciding everything. What changes, if any, would you make to improve conference?
Yeah. I'm not I just kind of go at it as whatever rules are thrown at me, I kind of adapt to and change to. So I've never been one to say, hey, we need to change this. Last year, not the 2022 season, I guess the 2021 season, I ran into the whole uniform issue. Just with me myself, because I don't
wait, correct me if I'm wrong, because you that's a very interesting thing. You wear a jersey, right? Yes. And then you have like athletic pants, like yoga pants or whatever. Yeah.
So that was an issue where I couldn't be on the field for a couple of tournaments because people had issues with that, which is okay. That was one of the things that I did. I don't want to say argued, but that was kind of my point of, hey, which I guess I could have conformed and worn softball pants, but that's just not who I am. So I follow the rules to as much as I possibly can. So there's not really anything that I would say, hey, oh gosh, we need to change that, because I am one that if you give me the rules, then I'll follow those.
Right. So you're more like a linebacker. You read and react to
Yep.
what's coming out. You don't want to say, hey, we want to set it this way. You know what's going to be
Sure.
interesting this year? I do not have the answer on this, but I know it's going to be maybe this week we'll find out about this towards the end of the week. I think that towards the end of the week or into next week, we're going to have some better ideas of scheduling. And I think one of the things that's going to be interesting, and I could not get this out of Stro, I tried, I promise, I tried, is what the event requirements are going to be this year. Because I heard they might change. Do you know what I mean? In terms of how many events you play, how many events are counted, different stuff like that. That's going to be very interesting to see. I don't know if you've heard anything about that as well.
I have not heard much about that. I think that it's interesting because we were, I guess, on both sides of it, that in 2021 at the conference championship, we were one of the teams that had not qualified for the major. And so we were one of the ones, the way that they did the conference championship that year was the highest finishing non-qualified team made the major. And we did not make it.
Wait, wasn't that there was a controversial one on that one? Wasn't there? There was a strike
rule.
Yeah, there was the old strikeout, non-strikeout, and the next thing you know, you're not making the major.
And the next thing you know,
not to bring up horrible memories, but
no, that's fine. It happens, but that I think, we were at the losing end of that, where I think that obviously this year how they did, the top 18 teams regardless make it. Was great. Because that gives you the option of how to set your schedule to do that and to add events if you need to, those kinds of things, and be able to stay ahead, because then, if you come down to the conference championship, you just don't know, because anybody could have a good tournament and then get in there and win that last
to a degree. I kind of like it in a weird way myself, like a little bit different than you on this, because to me, it's like, man, you can suck. Not that you want to suck. Do you know what I'm saying? But like, and then you still have a chance. Like, it doesn't mean you're going to do it. You'll probably go 0-2 if you suck all season. But I'm saying that you're like, oh, your guys are playing for something there with certain teams. And but I do see the trade-offs, benefits. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. I think it'll be a little bit different this year than last year. But we'll see how that ends up going for this year. And let's see, I'm trying to think here. And by the way, if you guys have any questions for Alisha, make sure to write them in here as we are live here on the special Monday edition of the Siteman Softball Podcast. We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, but if you have any questions for Alisha, I always want to see if the community has any good questions as well. Also, Westpoint, I remember years ago I was coming into just learning about upper level softball. And I was like, oh, great. There's a military team, Westpoint, because I have no idea.
Not that cool.
Because I'm an idiot and I had no idea what it was. Do you know what I mean? And then I was like, well, that doesn't look like a military team. And so tell us a little bit about what is Westpoint Financial? What's also your day job?
Sure. Yeah. No, Westpoint Financial is really just where I work. I don't own it. I just work there. They allow me to use the name for it. And so I am a financial professional. So I do financial planning. So it's one of those things that that is my day job, is helping people with investments, retirement, those kinds of things, and have been doing that for almost 17 years. And so that it's been nice enough that my boss has let me to use that name along the way. So
very cool. And I got to ask this because, I always have the half my mind on softball and half on business.
Yes.
Not separate from family and friends, guys. I'm thinking about you guys too, but I'm talking about, when we're talking here on podcast, is curious on one, what's nice about that, right? Like being a financial planner, advisor, et cetera. Obviously it allows you flexibility, right? Because if you had a job where you had to be there in the office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, very difficult to get yourself to a duel, very difficult to get yourself on something on Friday night. So it allows, my guess is it allows some flexibility for you.
It does. Yeah, for sure. I actually remember my grandma, when I first started working at Westpoint, was like, do you have vacation time? Which I don't, I never did. It's one of those things that I've always made my own schedule. So it's nice to be able to pick up and be able to be at the tournaments, or to be able to be in Florida for 10 days and be able to move my office, if you want to say that, to Florida for for a few days. So.
Right. All you need is a computer and a phone, basically. You know what I mean?
That's all I need.
And just curious, because I know, you could tell when people really enjoy their careers. It seems like it's something you really enjoy, because I can just tell the way you mention it. What do you really like about it?
I have run into all sorts of people. I get to meet a lot of people in a lot of different stages of life, and really just to be able to answer the questions that are on people's minds of, hey, can I retire? Am I going to be okay? Like you said, everybody is impacted by cancer. I've had several clients that have passed away from cancer, and allowing their beneficiaries and their spouses to know that they're going to be okay after those people pass away is super rewarding, and just allowing people to be able to live comfortably. So yeah.
Well, very cool. And just read some comments here before we get to our final little shout. You want to mention or any shout outs on the way out? But Brandon Miller, Competitive Edge, says, never fun playing Westpoint, gritty and determined. That's what he said. Eric Conan from Siteman Pure says, Alisha always has puts. He meant put together a solid
that's
squad.
Your team.
Yeah, that's my team. We're gonna work on that. We're not. We have some strengths. Spelling's not one of them. But Alisha always puts together a solid squad. So a lot of people know, and you guys, you made your mark very quickly here in softball too. I mean, it's been a long journey, but I feel like when I first started learning about you guys, because again, I'm still relatively new to the sport, was you guys were I knew you had won, and then I was watching the duel a few years ago, and you guys were like tearing it up at the Florida duel to start the year. It was an A team, and I was like, this A team is knocking off big name teams down there, and it's been cool to watch your journey. And we only got to play once last year, but hey, you'll never know what'll happen this year, right?
You never know.
All right. Thanks, Alisha. Have any shouts or anything you want to mention on the way out as we wrap up here today on the podcast?
Oh, I just want to give a huge thank you to my team for 2023, and I look forward to it. So he just said I edited my comments.
Exactly. We're pointing out everything here, and then I misspell everything too, so it's all good. Well, thank you, Alisha. This has been Alisha Bush here from Westpoint Softball, episode number 57 of the Siteman Softball Podcast. You can find out more sitemansoftball.com/podcast. I want to thank Siteman Cancer Center, learningwithnationalleaders.com, and thank you, Alisha, for joining us here today.